Hey everyone, this is Richard Allen, and in this video I'm going to take you through my new ebook called Guitar Chords. It's a Kindle book. It was made to put into the Kindle store at Amazon, but it was too huge. So I'm just going to go right to it and take you right through it. This is the cover. Over 2,600 diagrams and illustrations, and I'm not lying, there are more. And it's totally interactive. You have links that go to different places within the ebook. It has a table of contents. I have a little spiel that I put in there. I'm going to be coming up with a similar book on arpeggios and scales. Actually, scales first and then arpeggios, so look for that. Done in the same kind of fashion. Basically, how to read the chord diagram. I've got chord diagrams and fretboard layouts of chords. Every note in the chord across the fretboard. All the notes are done they're all color coded. Like the C is turquoise, the E is red, the G is orange, and they will keep that color throughout the whole thing. Open strings over here on the left hand end, off the nut. Along the bottom I have the notes that are involved in that chord and their intervals. So this is a C major, for instance, so C, E, G, root 3-5 or 1-3-5. And of course you can see the numbering of the frets across the bottom. The 12th fret has the little yellow highlight, so you can see where that is. I went up to the 17th fret basically because there are some chords that span the 12th fret, so I wanted to make sure that I got those in there, and I didn't need to go up past the 17th fret for anything that I needed. Let's go back to the table of contents. After the initial part about the book and how to read the diagrams, I have a little section on theory. Now, this book is not essentially about theory, but I do have a theory section which briefly touches on basic chord theory, not even heavy into music theory, just basically chord theory. I've done it in illustrations, which makes it sort of fun and intuitive to use. I've introduced color, which really helps in identifying and having things jump off the page at you and sticking in your brain. So I'll just go really quickly through the pages of that. Definition of a chord is obvious. 3 or more notes sounded simultaneously. I get into sort of the origin of a scale. The lettering, the naming convention was from 5th century Rome. And basically how a scale has 8 notes, and the 8th note being a repeat of the first note, and it's called the octave. So that range of 8 notes is called the octave. Talking about flats and sharps and their symbols, the sharp symbol and the flat symbol. Enharmonic notes, this is the cool part, and this is what makes the fretboard make sense. Obviously, enharmonic notes are notes that share the same sound. For instance, it could be a C sharp or D flat. They both have the same sound depending on the context, what key it's in. These are all the sharp notes on the fretboard. And voila, the flat notes. Natural notes, natural with flat notes for all those scales that have just all flats, and then the sharp notes for those scales that have all sharps. Difference between a melodic interval and a harmonic interval. Melodic interval being more of the one note after another, like in a scale or an arpeggio. Harmonic interval is the sound of all the notes together in a chord. This is really cool. Kind of explains how chords are built and the whole concept of tertian harmony. Chords are built by stacking thirds. You can see over on the right how chords are built from that major scale up on top. These colors will really start to work themselves into your brain, as you get used to them. And this is tertian harmony out on the staff. And you can see how the 2, 4, 6 are the same as the 9, 11, 13. And you can see over on the right how tertian harmony stacks those chords in thirds. This is worth its weight in gold. I could have used this, 25 years ago. A couple of decades ago, when I grasped this and realized what I needed, I created this myself with a pencil and a ruler and highlighted the 1, 3, 5, 7 just like that. Really helps when you're, if you're trying to figure out inversions or, just kind of building chords. This right here, again, worth its weight in gold. and basically tonics and diatonics. You can see how the chords are built. You can really see how those colors show the relationship of notes, especially within a scale. A lot of chords have, the same notes. You can see why. You can substitute that C major with an E minor 7 in some situations. There's that E minor triad right there. So it's in a C major 7th and it's in the E minor 7th. And you can see that similarity with a lot of other relationships, within diatonic scales. We get down past the table of contents and the chord theory section, we get into the actual chords. Now these are, starting with open position chords. These are chords that are open string chords. In other words, you play them down near the nut. They all have open strings. You can see the circles up on top. Some of them have muted strings, but there are open strings in all of these. If they didn't have an open string, then I didn't include it. Let's get into movable chords. Chords are basically major, minor, or dominant. Those are the three basic pillars of chord construction. Movable major chords. Let's just start there. This is a major chord. These are all movable chords. These can be played anywhere on the fretboard, and that's where the intervals along the bottom come in handy, because you see what the interval is. If you want to, for instance, that major chord over on the far left, if you notice that the root is on the low E string. If you were going to do it as an A, it would be on the 5th fret. That 4 would be on the 5th fret because it's the root. If it were going to be a B, then it would be on the 7th fret. And as I go left to right, I work up through this sort of inversions in a way. Not true inversions, but you start out having the root as the lowest note, and then as you go up through, notice now the 3 is in the lowest, and then the 5 is in the lowest. And that's the way that this whole series is set up. So now that's the major chords. Now we're into the major sus2s, substituting the 2 instead of the 3. So it's a root 2-5 instead of a root 3-5. So you're starting with the root as the lowest note, left to right, working up to, there's the 2 as the lowest note. And then finally, we're in the 5 as the lowest note. And I work my way from the E string in different string sets, work my way up through the intervals on the E, work my way up through the intervals on the A, and then the D. So there are 3 basic string sets that are involved in these. The cool thing about this is that, say for instance, we like this shape here, the one right over the C, that 3rd from the left. So what does that look like in B? What is a B major sus2? Where do I find that? Well, here is the 5th in the root. So let's go here. Oh, cool. The F sharp is the 5. So go down there to the 14th fret. There's your F. Every single chord diagram has this row of buttons across the bottom that will show that particular chord in that key. So these are all sus2. And as you get into the sus4, same thing. These are all the sus4s. What's a D sus4? Those are the notes in a D sus4. It shows you the interval and the notes. You can also create your own voicings. If you want to get experimental, then go ahead and find your own voicings. You might see something that I haven't written down, or you might want to try something different using open strings and some stretchier voicings, whatever you want. Then I also have a section on triads. I go through all the string sets, the E, A, D, G. 3 notes. E and the A string are identical. Then we go down to the D string. All 3 inversions. And then finally onto the G string. So that's the triads. And a really cool part about this also is the jazzy style chords. They're all 4 notes. Some of the chords that are like 13ths and 11ths, you don't play all the notes in the chord. It's impossible for a guitar player to play all 7 notes in a 13th chord on only 6 strings. And even if you could, it would sound horrible. Let's go to the C dominant 13th. Look at all the notes. When it comes to the jazz chords, let's go to a C 13th. And this is what I've done. I've just put down those essential notes on the fretboard. Makes it a lot easier. These are the cool notes in that chord. So that's sort of the gist of this whole thing. That's my book. Guitar Gold is my brand. This book is Guitar Chords, and that's what it's all about.